everybody, and welcome to a Moo episode of Indie Film Cafe. I'm your old buddy, the Moo Cow, aka Paulie Presenza, and tonight, as usual, I am joined by
I'm your co-host, Jonathan A. Moody.
Outstanding, and then together we are joined by somebody new. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Brandi Lynn Dalton. Nice to meet you.
Yay!
Yay.
Welcome, Brandi.
Thank you.
And how did you get roped into coming onto this ridiculous show?
Ask Jonathan.
Did you beg and plead?
I didn't have to. I just asked once, and I said, "Brandi, would you like to come on the show?" And she said, "My schedule is clear." Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, we have gathered together to talk about a movie that we all watched ourselves through the magic of Zoom and magic of Tubi. And it is the classic stinker brainless brain movie from 1959/1962, The Brain That Wouldn't Die.
Nope, it would not die.
And you guys hadn't seen this before, had you? All right. Well, we will talk about this ridiculous movie after we hear some music. And we are back.
Yep.
See you. I'm very curious. Brandi, I'm going to pick on you since you are the you're the newbie, the new fish in the pond. What did you think about this film?
I actually liked it.
Okay.
I thought it was good. And it had so many funny things in it. The guy, when he put the stuff in his girlfriend's drink, it reminded me of I mean, it sounds horrible, but almost like he was giving her a roofie or something, like the date rape.
Oh yeah. He was Cosbying her. Yeah, for sure. It was terrible.
Yeah. And the women dancing around in the bar, I was at first I was okay, is this supposed to be like a Moulin Rouge kind of thing? What's going on here? I was a little confused. And then I was oh, I guess this is supposed to be they're supposed to be dancers. I wasn't really sure what was going on. And they started cat fighting and
right, it was like a titty bar before they were allowed to have titty bars. It was a burlesque show.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I was trying to say.
They still do burlesque, I believe. They're just not as common as strip clubs or anything.
Yeah, but I actually liked it. That was kind of good.
All right, Mr. Moody, you're next. What did you think?
I enjoyed it. I mean, it wasn't as bad as some of the ones that you showed me from this time and whatnot. Was that the rug monster one? I mean,
Creeping Terror.
Yeah, Creeping Terror. This is way better than Creeping Terror. It's still kind of a little stinky. It's got a little bit of stink to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was fun. It was enjoyable to watch. It did remind me of just those 50, even though it was made in late 50s and everything. It felt earlier 50s monster movie kind of stuff or whatever, Frankenstein and all that other junk.
Except what kind of separates this one from some of the other ones are a couple of key differences. Even though the movie wasn't really made by people who do a lot of production, these were folks who were in the background who did other things. So they kind of knew people who were able to actually do so, they knew the cinematographer and they knew the editor and all that kind of thing. So there is more of a polish to this film than a lot of other movies in that period. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing, boy howdy, there's a lot more sleaze. This is a sleazy ass movie, if you ask me. This is the movie when I first got into rating and reviewing stinky movies way back in the day, I coined the phrase 37 showers, because you needed to take 37 showers to wash off all the snot and slime and gross stuff on it. This was a skeezy ass movie. And that's also very different. Other than later on, when you transition into the 60s, you start to get what they're called nudie cuties, and they start mixing up some horror elements with that. This is right before that, so this is kind of an earlier version, but they just don't show any nudity. but man, it would not have been out of place because there were some scenes in there that had no other, thing other than to sort of be cheap titillation, you
Right.
know, and definitely a level of misogyny going on here too. But
Definitely. Uh,
can either one of you kind of maybe sum up what happens in this film?
do you want to go, Brandy?
What happens in it? I will have to say though, I don't want to give the very end away.
Oh, it's okay.
Well,
We spoil movies all the time.
we spoil all our movies, every
Okay.
single one of them. So
And
don't
besides,
worry.
this has been out there for what, 60 years?
Yeah, that's fine.
No one's going to get spoiled.
I didn't take away from anything you were gonna say, but like I was just ready for like the creature guy to come out the closet when I seen him. I was like, it's Sloth from the Goonies.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I thought it was like Sloth. Like, right when he came out, the first thing in my head was, "Hey, you guys."
I was like, oh, that would exactly. I was like, that would have just made the end if he was just like, hey, you guys, like
Yeah.
ran off with the lady.
And that's like where the Goonies got Sloth from, is this movie or something. That would like put everything in like full circle for me in life. Like,
Right. That was like Sloth's dad.
yeah. I don't even know. Did he have a name? Did this like creature thing have a name? I don't think it
The
did.
monster.
How
The
did he catch it?
monster.
The monster in the closet.
Just the monster in the closet.
That's
Okay.
true. Okay, yeah. That was the name they called him. Okay.
And it's funny because this is a movie that had a great Mystery Science Theater review. And when they did it, the character Jan, who's the head, was called Jan in the Pan. And that's kind of been the name for that character forever after that.
IMDb has it as Jan in the Pan.
Yep.
Yeah. But it's never said actually in the movie, so it's really funny that
Right.
I think that's hilarious. But yeah, Jan in the Pan is the name. But yes, go on. We kind of interrupted you on that, but
Oh, that's okay. I was a little confused though, like when they got into the car accident and then he like reaches in. I thought he was gonna like pull her out of the fire, but like how like so she just got decapitated. He just like took her head and ran. Like I was confused. I was like, what? Because she
well,
had up like she was like, oh, like help me, and then next thing you know, I was like, oh, he's gonna save her. He's gonna get through he's taking his coat off. He's gonna pull her out through the window, and then all of a sudden you just see him kind of have something, and then the whole time he's running, I'm like, did he just like take her head, just like right off with her head?
Yes.
just ran off with her and
He's kind of like, I only kind of liked this part of you. So,
it's funny about that too, because like that was the worst
car accident.
car
Yes.
accident I've ever
That was
seen.
Ed Wood level.
Because like he flies through the air, but I'm like, how can he fly from the driver's side like that? Like without by the way, he wasn't bloody or anything. He
No.
didn't have any blood.
He had no problem.
Yeah, he just like flew out of this thing. And I'm like, I can understand like if they had him be in a convertible or something, that might have made sense, but he was in a normal car. Like it made
Yeah.
no sense absolutely.
He
So
was
I was
wasn't he? I thought he wasn't a convertible.
Yeah, he was in a convertible.
Was he in a convertible? Are you
Yes, there
sure?
are two convertibles in this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't remember it being open, the
Mhm.
thing, but I guess it was. Okay, that would make more sense then, maybe. Maybe I missed
Guess,
that.
unless, so how come she didn't fly out then?
She might have had her safety belt on. He didn't.
Her what?
Her safety belt.
Oh, they probably didn't have
What?
seatbelts.
1969 or 1959?
They didn't
Yeah.
have safety belts back then?
They were a lot rarer.
Oh,
And
I
there
didn't.
was certainly no law to have them.
Oh, wow.
But
Oh,
it
wow.
is interesting because I have to wonder,
Mhm.
it was late 50s when the whole Jane Mansfield thing, I think, happened, when she, famously got decapitated in a car accident. So I
Oh,
have to wonder if this informed that film.
That influenced it. Yeah, maybe.
her daughter is now very famous for being on Law and Order Special Victims Unit. So I watch her
Sure.
every Thursday, or Friday, really. I watch it on Peacock.
Right. So yeah, there's a car accident. This is before there's like a 15-minute thing where he's like ruining every possible medical ethics there is by doing experimentation on a dead body in front of his father, and his dad's like, well, he's a corpse now, go ahead and do what you want. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Are you people morally bankrupt?
I think so. I thought that from the very beginning when, or not beginning, but later on in the days where he becomes American Psycho and is like, acting like he's fucking this nice guy and is like, I'm a, nice guy. A nice guy wouldn't kill you, like, or whatever.
And by the way, I'm stealing organs and limbs from the hospital and, playing with them.
Oh Lord. It got really twisted and seedy in this movie.
It's so seedy. It is definitely a seedy movie. You can smell the, men's room urinal pucks off of this one. It's just gross.
It's pretty disgusting, but it's funny because it's made because it is like a 50s style movie. It just feels weird. It feels like this was the real 50s that we didn't get to see because of laws and stuff that say,
Laws and stuff.
right?
Like taste.
Yeah, and in taste and different things like that, where they're like, let's not
I mean,
do
he
that.
goes cruising around. He's like going where all the women are so he can ogle them, so he can pick out a body to try and replace his dead would-be wife's body. And, he's going to strip clubs or burlesque shows. And he's even following women in the street in his car. He's just like creeping along. I'm like,
Well,
dude,
he's got to find the right body.
I guess so.
I mean, he's got to check them all out and stuff. And then at one point, he has two women in his car. I'm like, where's this
Yep.
going?
Yep.
Which he doesn't want because he doesn't want a witness.
Right. He's very fucking careful too. Like, I was like, dude, this guy's like either done this before or he's just watched too many cop shows or something where he's just like, I can't leave. Like, I've got to take this chick. I've got to make sure she writes out a note. Oh, she can't say me in the note, so I have to take her thing. I'm like, good God, dude. You're going through a lot of trouble just for a body.
Right.
Yeah. So
When you
the accident, he has to, he only saves the head because I guess that was all that was worth it. And then he spends the rest of the movie trying to find a body.
Maybe she gave good head.
There you go. Carhead. There you go.
Roadhead, yeah, for
Roadhead's
sure.
a thing.
Sorry, I had to go there.
I think a lot of people went there because like the whole. I think maybe that is a thing for the movie because it is about a head, right, and everything, and it is misogyny. It is all of these things that I think that maybe there is that little subtle joke that all of and I'm not saying this. So don't come after me. But this is like my idea of what the movie is saying is like that all women are good for her head, or their head, or whatever. And that's basically what this director who's male did in this, for the
'Cause
lead
that has
actor.
little undertone stuff in it with the strippers, and then the women are fighting over him, cat fighting, and then like prowling on the street trying to find like this perfect body. And he was looking at the poster of the one burlesque lady, and he was like checking her out. Like, damn, I'd like to have my head on that body.
So he's sketchy as hell. It's like he's upgrading his girlfriends. Like, oh, I didn't really like her body anyway, so I'm going to find another one.
I'm gonna find the perfect body, and he does, like to his standards, I guess. He found.
And remember, he's been practicing because he's got his buddy Kurt, who is his assistant, who I guess he started stuff first, and he has this withered arm there.
Yeah, his little
And
claw.
yeah, and he's like out of some twisted sense of loyalty has decided to help him do all these horrible, unethical things. But he's had a mistake, and that's what's been inside the closet going.
Yep.
So you know it's going to be fun.
Yeah, once you show whatever's in there, because the head is like telepathically, it says. But
Yes. So the head wakes up in a tray full of shit. We don't know what it is. It's got no lungs. It's got no heart. So we have no idea what's keeping it alive or allowing it to talk. But not only is it alive and talking, it now has mental powers, which is one of the biggest freaking things that I hate about movies is when you die and somehow not only do you come back to life, but you come back to life more powerful than when you were alive. It's like we might as well be dead so that we can become more powerful.
But I didn't get any of that though because she's still like opening up her mouth and talking. So
Mhm.
like, how's that mental powers? Like,
Well,
how's
she's
that
communicating with the closet boy by
Yeah,
doing that.
by
yeah.
talking? She's
Well,
saying
she was like,
hello.
yeah.
She's
Well,
saying hello to it.
there's a point like where she's just kind of like you could tell she's just kind of like trying to like focus her energy, and you saw that little meter like moving, and I guess
Right.
that she was like
That was a
sending
good pickup.
her
Yeah.
powers over there to the closet. They had
Yeah.
the little peekaboo, the little door to like look in.
And
Did they
she's
ever?
like having a conversation with it, and it's like, banging on the door like Trigger, once for yes, twice for no.
Too
Well,
smart.
but didn't they do that? Like, didn't don't they do that with like ghosts? If there's a ghost
Yeah.
here, knock twice,
Right.
or
Yeah.
whatever. And so like that became really silly in a way, but like I get it. Like, you need to talk to this thing. And it's not gonna talk to you like a normal person
Right.
talks, it's gonna have to, you know, um
And let's point out that Jan in the Pan ain't happy. She's not happy that she's,
She's alive.
being kept alive. She keeps insisting, please let me die. And he's like, no, I've got to bring you back. I got to give you a hot body first, but I'm bringing you back no matter what. And she's like, I just want to die. Just let me die. And he won't do it. So
Yeah.
she decides to plot her revenge by using the mistake in the closet, and so that's how she ends up communicating with it. And then he goes on his rampage and kills everybody. A rather bloody ending, which is another thing that kind of transitions between the old style 50s movie and into the new kind of films. They become a lot more graphic later, when you start to get to like Herschel Gordon Lewis and stuff like that.
mhm.
This is an early movie that kind of does that. And I have some other information about that we'll talk about later
I
on. But
think William Castle did that too, like at some point. Like it started to get a little bloody and everything, even though the 60s. The 60s
mm,
started to really do that and
yep.
everything. So but yeah, the uh it got really bloody, and I just want to say he saves the girl. He's like
Yep. Yep.
tore from fucking Bride of the Monster. He just
But
picks the girl up
did,
and you know
did you
Yeah.
notice when assistant poor Kurt gets his arm torn off, and then he spends 5 minutes kind of like wandering around, bashing it
Oh, yeah.
against the wall, leaving blood stains everywhere,
Mhm.
before he finally decides to just give up the ghost.
just die. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I was like, I mean, I guess if your arm is off like that, you're gonna lose a lot of blood. But, I mean, there had to have been a way, like he have a telephone or something, call 911, Like, why do you just sit around like you have one arm and you still have
Well, it
another
was
one?
pretty withered, so I guess he couldn't really.
I don't know. It was just sad. He was walking around. I don't even know what he was doing. He was just walking around, and then he eventually comes back and just dies in the corner and everything. And then the dude has no emotion whatsoever that his
Nope,
assistant just
Yeah.
died.
didn't
It's just
care.
like, okay, and
They're a
doesn't
little-
even ask how.
Yeah.
Right?
He doesn't even like,
Doesn't
that would be
doesn't
my
even
first question. Like,
doesn't even react.
right. Like, I'm like, okay, the head couldn't have done it. So obviously, I would be like, is that thing still out there? Like, that would be my first thought is
Oh
like,
God, I wish the head had done it. That'd have been so much fun.
the head just bit the guy or something. Like,
No, the head is just bitchy the whole time. In fact, it's so bitchy that he finally tapes her mouth shut. It was so
Yeah.
funny.
That's funny. That
yep.
was fun. Hey, when the creature bit the doctor, like what did he rip out like his jugular? And he was
Like
like,
part of his neck.
but
Yeah,
what is that what it was? It was like a
yeah. A
oh
big
okay.
chunk of flesh.
Oh okay. He was just like chewing and he spit it out. Like, okay.
He's like, I don't like
I
the taste of
told
this
you to
thing.
let me die.
But
I
she ends
know.
up anyway.
Well, did she
Yeah.
die? Did she die? I guess in
I mean, there's a fire because, of course, there's a fire. Everything blows up finale. You got to have that.
Yep.
But Thingy Boy, Closet Boy, runs off with the model, saves her, like you pointed out. But what happens? What exactly is going to happen now? I mean, is
I
this
think
a
he
good
just saved
thing?
her. I think it was a good thing. Like
Are they
that's how
going to
I
run
viewed
off
it.
and be a couple now, or
No,
is he
That's
going to eat her?
no, she doesn't
wait,
like men. Remember, like I don't
Right,
think.
right.
But I don't know about monsters. I don't know if there's a
Well, there could be, who knows what he was. He was made up of bits of parts. There could be all kinds of parts there.
maybe I don't know. But she very much told everybody she did not like men at all.
There's a missing story there. We need to shoot
The
what happens
sequel.
after, where
yeah,
they go off together and become a couple. They have little kids made up from parts of other kids.
It sounds like a great comic book.
It's
I'd
so
read that.
silly.
All right,
Um,
so Paul, you got some background for us?
I got a bunch of background. So yeah, Brain That Wouldn't Die was originally shot in 1959. Didn't get released until 1962. They kind of toyed around with it for a while. It was originally shot in a place called Tarrytown, New York. Okay, and it was under the title The Black Door,
I
which I
saw
guess
something about that. Yeah.
referred to the closet, I guess. Okay. And then it became The Brain That Wouldn't Die. And then for a while it was The Head That Wouldn't Die.
And then it was both.
Then
So
it
it's
was
like,
both.
yeah.
There were prints that went out that had both titles on there. Some of them we would have it in the beginning, and some of them would have it towards the end where they do the end credits, and people were
Ours had it at the
confused.
end credits, right? Saying the head that wouldn't die or
Mhm.
whatever, and the brain that wouldn't die was in the beginning.
Right, right. So the movie was directed by a guy named Joseph Green. He didn't really do a whole lot of directing or writing. He also co-wrote it, but he did own Joseph Green Pictures, and it was a sort of B movie, a small B movie company that released a bunch of these B movies throughout the 50s, 60s, and into the 70s. So they released things like Kiss Me Monster, Two Undercover Angels, Blade, not the famous Blade, but the movie Blade from 1973, GI Executioner, Kung Fu Fury, sort of like B movie actioners and some foreign films. And, that's kind of how he made his money. And his buddy, Rex Carlton, who was the producer on this and also a co-writer, was along with the gang and was part of that group. And he's the guy who actually came up. He and Joe's Green came up with the original story. Aside from that, Rex Carlton was just a producer. He never really engaged in anything else, but he was involved in some late 50s and early 60s stinkers, such as The Rebel Rousers, Hell's Bloody Angels, The Blood of Dracula's Castle, The Devil's Hand, a whole bunch of, drive-in movies from that era, B-level stuff, So they were kind of like a B-level drive-in group that sort of specialized in this. There were a bunch of them out there. And when this came out, one of the bigger fish of that group was American International Pictures, AIP, and
Yep.
they're the ones who picked it up and distributed it.
So who owned AIP?
Oh gosh, I forget at that point, but I know that was
Samuel R. Arkoff, was that
yeah,
it?
he was definitely part of that group, and there were a few others there. They were very, very famous for sort of going after the drive-in crowd and the B movie crowd at that
You don't
time.
have that anymore, which is
I
really
know.
sad. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this because Brandy's an actress and has acted in a bunch of like a few independent projects and stuff that also feel like they should be in that. If that was still an existing thing,
Mhm.
your films would be being part of that. Like would be
Oh, yeah.
a B movie and
Yeah,
stuff. Like there'd be an A movie like whatever's big in Hollywood right now, and then there'd be the B movie, which would be, our independent kind of stuff that we do. And
Yeah,
I,
it was a different era because with the drive-in crowd, it really didn't matter how good the movie was. All you needed was a fun title that drew in the teenagers and got their asses in the seat. They weren't going to pay attention anyway. They were there to make out and eat popcorn and have premarital sex. They didn't really care about the movie so much.
Yeah.
So that's really what that kind of B movie level stuff was for.
yeah.
So the other person involved in this is the person Doris Brent. She wrote what quote unquote additional dialogue in this film, so she's credited as one of the writers. She was also the nurse in this film, which is kind of
Mhm.
interesting. And the other thing is she also, this was the only thing she ever did any writing or production stuff on, but she also acted, and she was in 8mm. I don't know if you remember 8mm.
The
Uh,
Nicolas Cage movie?
yeah, you remember Machine,
Oh,
the guy who ends up, having the big fight? That was, and he goes and finds him and kills him. She plays his mother, Machine's mother,
Shit.
in that. Yeah, I know. And
oh,
then
Oh.
she was in a movie called Jersey Guy and a few other things too. So yeah, she kind of, this was like her first intro into all this, and she ended up doing some other
What
things
an
later.
intro.
Yes.
Just having this in your resume is just like phenomenal, I think.
No, I know.
Period.
It's funny.
which nurse was she? Is she the one that was like in the operating room, or was she the one at the end?
Yeah,
Okay,
operating room.
I think
got
she was the lady that was
or
like
she the
covered up, right? And then she was talking to them in the
one.
beginning, right?
Yeah.
Oh, because there was one at the end that was telling the couple that he had that phone call and that he needed to get to the country house or whatever. So I wasn't sure.
Oh, I think that might be the same
I
person,
was gonna
wasn't
say,
it?
I think it's the same
I
one.
think that's the same one. So I think
Okay.
because she was covered up, you couldn't see her face when she was in the operating room. But I think later you see her face and you see her, and she does tell
And I
the
can
guy.
guarantee you it's the same, not only the same actor, but the same character, because, when they were doing these kind of B movies back then, they would make sure the cast was small because they didn't want to pay more people.
Yeah.
So there you go.
There you
Okay.
go.
Okay.
So was Jan just the character of Jan? Was she just like the girlfriend of the guy or something? Is that like, or was she just some random chick he was with at the time, like
Oh, that was his fiance.
fiance? Okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Because remember, she's like, I can't wait for us to get married. Really want to get married. When are we going to get married? Hint, 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 hint.
2 weeks.
Right, 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 right. It's always 2 weeks.
They didn't get married. That would have been an awesome ending where they got married and she's still ahead.
Yeah.
And they couldn't find the body for her. And he's like, oh fuck it. I'll just marry the head.
Right. Put her in a little fish bowl and just, put a top on there and carry her around.
She's like, why won't you just kill me? It was like, because I love you, honey. You know?
It's so funny. So Dr. Joe, who is our sleazy ass, ethically challenged doctor, who's
Mhm.
brilliant in his apparently, was played by Jason Evers. His real name actually was Herb Evers, but he changed it to Jason. I'm not sure if it had to do anything to do with this movie or not.
I think so there's either two reasons usually that people do that and movies, and one reason is because there's already somebody in SAG with the same name, so they have to change it or whatever, or they just don't want anybody knowing that this is the movie that they acted,
Mm-hmm.
because IMDb didn't exist back then.
Right,
So
right, right.
nobody would know. Now everybody knows.
Well, he actually has quite a long resume. He was a long time TV actor starting in the 50s. He was in Phil Silver's show. He was in a show called Deadline. He was in a show like 26 or 28 episodes of a show called Wrangler. He was in a show called The Rebel, and
Dang, he's in a lot of shows.
yeah,
Yeah.
tons of shows. I mean, 77 Sunset Strip, Gunsmoke, the FBI,
Oh,
Green
so he was
Book,
like a special guest, basically.
Wild Wild
Right.
West, Star Trek, the original Star Trek,
Oh,
Hawaii Five-O, Happy Days, Charlie's Angels, you name it.
Do you
This guy
remember?
was on it.
Do you
oh wow.
remember him from Star Trek? Because
No.
you just watched Star Trek recently, right? Enough, recently
Yeah,
enough.
yeah, yeah. And you're right. He would do like single episodes here and there. And, he was just sort of a for hire, work a day TV actor. And he got a ton of work doing
Mhm.
stuff. But he was also in a number of films, some of which are pretty notable. So he was in a movie called The Green Berets with John Wayne,
I've heard of it.
pretty notable kind of crappy film in its own
It's like
way.
a war movie, right, or something.
Right. It's like an over the top, super gung ho, crazy war movie. He was in that. He was in a decent movie in this I don't know, it was late 50s, early 60s, but he was in the Ray Bradbury movie Illustrated Man.
I've heard of
which
it.
is actually a good one. He was in Escape from Planet of the Apes, or as I like to say, Planet of the Apes.
Hmm.
Um, he was in the Sidney Poitier movie, A Piece of the Action.
Oh.
And then, like most actors, the longer he stuck around, the crappier the roles got. And he started to get into stinky stuff like Claws, which was a Bears ripoff of Jaws, and Barracuda,
Wait,
which was
wait,
another
Claws?
fish
I
ripoff
feel
of
like I need to
Jaws.
watch that. Is
Oh,
that
we're
on
going to
Tubi?
watch it, trust me. And then he was out for a little while, and then he came back, Moody. He came back at his advanced age. And if you ever got to see Basket Case 2, he
Ah,
was in Basket Case 2. He was playing Lou the editor. And
I have not yet.
that was his last role before he died. Um, so and Pretty Boy, yeah, like early stuff he did was Pretty Boy Floyd back in the 50s and House of Women. So he was in some stuff, you know.
Mm.
So of all the people involved in this film, he had the most experience.
Wow.
Jan in the Pan was played by Virginia Leith, and this is her most infamous role, but she was in other things. So she started off as a model, and then she got discovered by Fox, and Fox put her on contract. And she was a contract actress in the early 50s to the mid 50s, and she was actually in some decent films. She was in a movie called Black Widow and A Kiss Before Dying, and gosh, a few other films that she was actually in that were actually pretty good. Um, then Fox did not renew her contract in 1956, so she kind of sort of her stardom kind of faded with that. But she got a lot of work in 60s and 70s TV shows. So just like our buddy Jason Evers, so she was in a bunch of TV shows for a while. Excuse me.
Well, okay, so I want to go back though, because you said that in 1956 they didn't, renew her contract. Was that
Right.
because like they just were done with her, or was it because or do you think it was because like about that time people were not doing contracts as much or
I think
whatever?
it was the less they were doing less contract at that time. I think there was a time of transition for actors because um, all the early reviews of her that I found, everybody thought that she was a promising young actress. So it's kind of a shame she sort of got in the biz at the wrong time,
Mm,
because you remember back in the 30s and 40s, you signed a contract, you were kind of golden. Now you had to go where they stuck you. That was the bad part of it, but you got consistent work all the time.
hmm.
And by the mid to late 50s, that style was really kind of going away. Not even the
Okay.
big stars had that.
Yeah,
So
because I remember like Alfred Hitchcock used to have contracts on like all these different actors and everything, and they
right.
had to use them. Like fucking the girl from The Birds, Tippi Hedren, he had a contract with her, and then like a three picture deal or something, and then kind of then he hated that because he didn't like working with her or whatever because she didn't. She wasn't as flirty as all the other girls that he liked working with and all
Right.
this other stuff.
But I have some juicy tidbits about our Virginia Chickie Poo here. For a while, she actually dated Marlon Brando. So
Wow.
that's interesting. I found out she was actually arrested in 1943 because she got in a razor fight with her roommate and cut her face so badly she actually needed 40 stitches.
Yikes.
Wow.
Yeah, apparently they had a fight over the roommate was reading late into the night and keeping her up,
Ooh.
and did not go well.
I guess
Got her
not.
ass arrested. Um, Prior to getting in and being signed by Fox, she was a hat check girl and a drive-in waitress. But you'll love this, Moody. Her debut film was in Kubrick's Fear and Desire, which was Kubrick's first movie too. So she
Nice.
kind of starts off kind of high, and then it just sort of,
Wait,
goes
was that for
downhill.
Fox?
I don't think that was for Fox. I think that was before Fox. I think that's probably what got her noticed by Fox.
Oh, okay. So I was
You know
gonna
what I
say,
mean?
I think that was independent,
Yeah,
or whatever done.
yeah.
We did Brandy, we did The Killing which was it's like the third film that Kubrick ever
Hmm.
did. And I think Fear and Desire maybe his second
That was the
film or something.
first. That was
That
the
was the
first
first.
one.
Okay. So there's Fear and Desire, then there's something between that and The Killing.
Yeah,
I
it's a
forgot what
war
it was.
movie. I forget what it was called.
Yeah, and then there was then The Killing. So we never did Fear and Desire, but I think Fear and Desire is on like a Kino 4K now, by the way. So they did.
Yeah, yeah. I got to say, The Killing is probably his first really good film. I think the other two are kind of, finding his way, kind of films.
Everybody's got to start out somewhere,
Yeah,
they can't all be like The Shining, or whatever. So
right,
there you go.
right. So Virginia, she managed to get enough TV stuff throughout the 60s and most of the 70s, and then she finally retired in 1980. So she had herself a little bit of a career, which was kind of cool. So I'm glad for her for that. Um, then we have Kurt, who was the assistant with the withered arm.
Mhm.
He was played by Anthony LaPena, and Anthony LaPena was primarily a voice actor and a sound guy, but he also appeared as an actor in a lot of Italian films, and he did a few other things too, especially in the early 50s. So he was in a movie called The Man from Cairo. He was in a movie called Room to Let, which actually was supposed to be a really good film. A potboiler called At Sword's Edge, Journey to Italy, and then when he got into the 60s, he started to go into more of the stinky movie route. So he was in Bloody Pit of Horror. He was in a Gamera movie, Gamera versus Boogerang. And then his last
Never heard of that
movie,
one.
yeah, his last movie was a crappy Western called Johnny Yuma.
Wait a minute, Johnny Yuma. That sounds
Yeah.
familiar. I don't know, but it was a bad Western. You've seen it?
No, but it's known as kind of a crappy Western.
Okay. Okay. Fair
So
enough.
that was him. We had our two strippers, our cat fighting strippers. The blonde was played by Bonnie Sherry. This was her one and only picture, believe it or not.
Oh.
And
Well,
the
maybe she didn't have a good enough time on this one.
the brunette stripper was named Paula Maurice, who also, this was her only thing. And it would not surprise me in the least if these were actual strippers that they went out and hired and said, "Hey, we need you for a couple hours."
And then that would explain why they never did anything else, because they were just doing their burlesque stuff or whatever for the rest of their
And the
time.
cat fight, can't forget that.
Well, I mean, I don't think they cat fight all the time, but I think
Right, right. Then the next most interesting person is, remember when he finally goes off to the beauty pageant where they're also being super judgmental on women, as you did back then, and they bring out all these different women, and then the one that they bring out, Peggy Howard, that she was the really striking brunette. That's actually played by Marilyn Harold. And Marilyn Harold was in a whole bunch of stuff. She was a TV actress and a Vegas showgirl who did a bunch of stuff in the 50s and 60s. And she did all sorts of interesting things. She's probably most famous for a movie we are definitely going to do, and I can't wait for us to do it. It's called Frankenstein Meets the Space Monster from
I
1965.
heard of that. Yeah, I think I was looking this girl up and I saw that and I said,
She
that,
plays Princess Marcuson.
what was the movie that Larry Butler was in? Was it Frankenstein?
Oh gosh, I forget the name of the
At like
Frankenstein
or
movie.
something like at something Cove or something.
Oh yeah,
The
yeah.
William Winkler movie, I believe.
Right, right.
I'm gonna look this up.
Frankenstein meets the monster of Cove Mountain or something like that. Bloody Cove.
Yeah, something like that. It was pretty cheesy, but
Yeah.
yeah,
A little bit
that
cheesy.
but I think that was like he was a fan of like that Frankenstein beats the space.
But Frankenstein meets a space monster or is really, really goofy and weird. So I can't wait to show you that. It's one of my favorite stinkers.
Okay, it's Frankenstein versus the creature from Blood Cove.
There you
That
go.
was the movie that William Winkler did. But we Did we didn't review that though. We did watch it. I don't think we reviewed it, did we?
I
Unless we did
think
a little video
we
review of it.
did, and I thought we had Larry on that one.
No. We only had him for Double D Avenger.
Okay.
We haven't had him, but we did show it to him, and then he showed it
Yeah.
to William Winkler, who loved it. Would loved it. So we did do a video of it, I think, back in
Well,
the day.
more little tidbits about Marilyn Howard. She was also in the original Batman TV series. She pops in for that. She was in Bewitched. I don't know if you remember that TV show. She was
Who doesn't
in.
remember Bewitched? Come on.
All right,
Yeah.
you never know.
Oh.
She was in the. There was a popular in the '60s movie with James Colburn called In Like Flint. She was in that film, and she was Playmate of the Month in 1959.
Wow.
Yeah. So I found out a lot of information about her because there's this site, and which actually is also turned into a book, and it's called Whores of Yore, a sexual history and catalog of jilts, cracks, nightwalkers, whores, she friends, kind women, and others of the linen lifting tribe, is what it's called. And she's one of the people that they talk about because, she had this career and started off and even before Playboy she was kind of famous. She was a model and she posed for a very, very famous 50s pin-up poster artist named Gil Everin, and she posed and her pose became a very famous poster called Riding High in 1958, and that's the thing that got her into Playboy, and Playboy got her into movies, and that's kind of how her career went for a while. And then after the 60s, when her stuff kind of dried up, she actually married an oil tycoon named Rulon Keaton Nielsen in 1967, who is the founder of Skyline Oil, which was an oil company in Salt Lake City, Utah, and he was pretty rich. They had 3 daughters, and she's still alive today, and she is involved in a lot of philanthropical stuff out in Salt Lake City, and is kind of sort of locally famous.
Nice.
Wow.
So yeah, I found out all kinds of fun, interesting information about her.
It's funny, like if you went to Salt Lake City, you'd want to go look her up.
Oh
But because
yes,
of this movie, not
yes.
because of any of the other stuff.
No.
So she would be like, what the hell? Why do you care about this movie?
Oh, she knows. She knows people. Yeah, love that movie.
Yeah, I'm sure she does.
And so the last person I want to talk about is the monster himself, played by Eddie Carmel. Now, Eddie Carmel was famous in his day. He was known as the Jewish Giant, reputed to be 9 foot tall, but no, he was not 9 foot tall. He was more like 7.5 feet, which was still pretty amazing.
If you're 7.5 feet tall, you're pretty damn tall.
Oh yeah. So he suffered from a form of gigantism, which was actually brought on because he had an inoperable tumor in his pituitary gland, and that brought on the gigantism. And it really didn't do him any favors because he had really bad arthritis most of his life. And in fact, he died young. He died at 36. And he had canes. In fact, he had a wheelchair for a while. But before he did all that, he had himself a fun, interesting little career. Like I said, he was famous for being the Jewish Giant, and he actually got photographed by a very famous photographer, Diane Arbus, and back in 1970, I think it was, where a picture of him in his parents' house, and he's towering over them, and a print of that picture sold at Christie's at auction for $583,000.
Oh wow!
So pretty impressive. So he had another career where he was like a professional wrestler for a while. He joined the Barnum and Bailey Ringling Brothers Circus for a while. He did that for like a decade in the 60s. He made some novelty records, including the song The Good Monster. And he had a band called Frankenstein and the Brain Surgeons. And they did a novelty song called the Happy Monster Song.
Oh man, can I find this on YouTube, I wonder?
I've looked, yes, and I have some of that. I'm going to include that in the podcast, a little bit of it, just because it's fun.
Oh, that means I gotta send you the link or the podcast.
Yeah.
You
But
can
he
do
was
that.
interesting. He kind of wanted to be a performer, but he had physical limitations, so there was only so much he could do. But a famous quote that I dug up from him said he wanted to be known as the reverse Mickey Rooney because Mickey Rooney was so short.
That's funny.
Um,
Um,
and his cousin ended up making an audio documentary about him back in 1999. I haven't found that out or found it yet, but I definitely would like to find it because I think that's pretty interesting. Um, and let's see. Yeah, I did find his 1972 New York Times death announcement, and he talks about different things. And one of the interesting little factoids he mentioned is they said apparently his maternal grandfather was also 7.5 feet tall, and he was known as the world's tallest rabbi. So there you go. I guess it ran in his blood.
Yeah.
wait, it's the tallest rabbi and the Jewish giant
Right,
together.
right.
That's funny.
Pretty interesting. And before we go on, I did want to finally also mention Doris, who's the girl at the end with the scarred face, um, played by Adele Thompson, aka I mean, sorry, oh gosh, what is her first? I got the cards mixed up here, because she changed her name. Um, Adele Lamont. Yeah, she was Adele Thomas, but she changed her stage name was Adele Lamont. So she was a dancer, and she was a theater actress. She also did a bunch of TV commercials, and she was on TV shows and did a bunch of different things. But this is really her one and only. I mean, she did a couple other small movies, but this was like her big deal movie. Um, a lot of places that I read reviews really kind of savaged her and said that she was the worst actress of the group. I thought she was all right,
And yeah, she was
honestly.
pretty bad. I mean, because I'm watching this movie and I'm like, oh man, everybody seems to be saying everything naturally, but then comes her who's kind of like, enunciates everything and makes everything bigger. And I'm
Yeah,
like, oh my, and I get what she was sort of doing because she was trying to show off her character being this sort of bitchy
very bitter.
character, bitter, nasty kind of character who, but when she's just like going, "Mensch," everything is just so mean spirited and it comes off like mega loud.
And
And
they're all really kind of crappy characters, which is another thing I wanted to talk about. But just to round her out, she was also a singer in a Cuban band, and she became a realtor later on in life, and then she died in 2005. And yeah, this was like her one big thing, and this was kind of what she was sort of known by.
maybe she didn't do much other because of people being savage about her acting, or whatever.
It's possible. I mean, she had this other work that, and again, she was probably chosen because she did have a nice body. She had a nice dancer slash model's body. So that was like her claim to fame.
That's why he chose her.
That's why he chose her. So, but if you look at all these characters, there's really nobody to sort of like root for. They're
Mm-mm.
all kind of flawed and shitty in their ways. I mean,
Hmm.
he's a doctor, and you'd think that would be good enough because he's all concerned about humanity, but he's so unethical and sleazy that you can't
Mhm.
like him. You want to feel bad for Jan, but she's also sort of evil and conniving and
But
maniacal.
but I mean, I disagree with that. I like Jan the most. Jan and the monster I think are the best characters because they didn't choose to be this way. They were sort of forced to be this way in their own way or whatever. And I didn't like it. Like I didn't I like I'm
Yeah, but
sorry, I
that
would
doesn't
not want to be
necessarily
Ed.
mean you have to plot other people's murders.
I
Like the
mean,
assistant guy, he didn't really deserve it.
he was helping this stuff. Like he
Well,
was
yeah,
like,
but he explained why because he wanted to get his arm fixed.
Mhm.
but still, there's other ways to get your arm fixed back then than,
Apparently
know,
not.
I don't
Else he would have
know.
done it. But even he's not sympathetic because, he turns into, oh, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. And he's like become such a baby. And then he's dumb enough to turn his back with the door open and lets the monsters strangulate him.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I mean, everybody, the father's like saying, well, you probably shouldn't be doing all these horrible, unethical things and breaking the law. You think you might like sort of like tell the law on this guy? No, it doesn't do that. It's just everybody's kind of is just bad.
Well, that's his
You know?
son. I mean, whatever. You can't blame a father for even though I mean, maybe unethicalism runs in the family. I don't know.
I mean, if my kid was stealing arms and heads and shit, I'm
Yeah.
probably gonna step in and do something about it.
Yeah.
Well, especially since it's your business, that you're stealing from. You know what I mean? Like it's work,
Yeah. Cover for him.
Was that Brandy?
He was covering for him too.
Right.
The
Yeah.
dad from stealing all the body parts.
Right.
He-
And even Doris was kind of sort of, sympathetic because, she had this horrible scar and she thought she was awful looking and blah blah. But then she's just so bitter and hateful and
yeah.
Well,
it's hard to root for her too.
okay, so she was in the beginning, and then he really convinces her that he's a good guy, that he's not there. He had no ulterior motives. He just
So like
wanted to help
roofies
her out.
her.
Right.
Yeah.
He had no ulterior motives, all these other things, right? Like he was showing off he was a really good guy. And that should have probably raised her guard up because when people act that nice or whatever, there's something, something evil.
Especially since the entire movie, all we've done is watch this guy be a sleaze bucket. So everybody is like in the audience going, no, don't believe him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
so funny.
Yeah.
So, Brandy, what did you think about the characters?
Do I know my favorite one?
Yes.
Okay. I guess Jan. She was pretty cool. I liked her. And I have to root for the monster in the closet. Those are two of my favorites. And also too, I was wondering, I was like, man, they did really good like makeup or mask or whatever he was wearing back then. I was kind of impressed with what, he had the eyeball
Well,
was there and he looked like Sloth. He really did.
it helps that it was black and white because
Yeah.
if it were in color, I'm sure it would not look very
Look as
Well,
good.
what it
cool.
looks, hey, you've got it behind you and it looks pretty cool. I mean, that's the
Well,
picture.
it's colorized, so we don't know what it really.
What it really looked like when they
Right.
put it on there. I
Right.
mean, because black and white can cover anything up or whatever because,
I mean, I'm not saying the mask wasn't good. I think the mask is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. could also been better. We'll see. I think the black and white really helped.
Helped. Yeah.
Especially with whatever the shit was in the pan. It's dark, so it could be blood. It could be God knows what.
Did
Yeah.
you watch the 2020 remake of it?
No, I did not. But I did want to bring up, not only is there a remake, but there are three, count them, three musical revivals that this movie made. Yeah. Believe it or not. So let's see here. It inspired, the first one was called the Brain That Wouldn't Die in 3D in 2011. And then there was The Head That Would Not Die in 2015. And then finally, they made one called The Brain That Wouldn't Die, the musical, in 2016. So there were three of those, believe it or not.
Wait, did you go see the musical? Because I know you love them.
I would love to see the musical.
You hate musicals, but
I know, but I'd see that one.
yeah.
I want to see the head sing. Please let me die. Please let me die.
Pretty much, that's what she says in the beginning of the movie. Like before it even starts, it starts with "Please let me die," and I was like, wait, is the movie started? Like, what is going on? Because you don't expect that.
So I did find one other site that had a small interview with Joseph Green, and I found some interesting tidbits, including, you might find this interesting, Mr. Moody. Apparently, originally when they were going to shoot the final scene itself was going to be in color. They couldn't afford to do the whole movie in color, so he thought what he'd do is film most of it in black and white, but then do the big, you know, finale in color. But they weren't able to do that. But the plan was to do that, and the plan was also originally, instead of being bit in the neck, he was going to get his head cut off,
Oh,
and
Karma.
and instead of just fire, there were going to be a bunch of rats surrounding the head and attacking the head. But he couldn't figure out a way to afford to do that. So,
I mean, nowadays, I guess you would get trained rats and you would get a
rat
fake head,
wrangler.
like a fake head made or whatever.
yeah.
I don't know. There could be some cool stuff that they could have done, but maybe nowadays it's easier than it was back then to do these things, especially on a low budget.
Right, right. There were some tonality issues too I had with the movie. In addition to it being just kind of sleazy and gritty and dark, they try to force some humor sometimes, like that whole thing with the cat fight, and then somebody disembodio says, "Wow," and I guess that's supposed to be funny, and I'm like, what? Where does that come from?
Yeah.
It was really weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, the cat fight was very silly, but in a way, like just having that in there, like once again, you said that was added or something because
Well,
like
it was in there. It's just that most of the public domain movies, that's cut, and it's, you know, I guess for brevity's sake. So, you know, there are a couple things that are cut, and so he goes in there and still talks to them, but they don't have the famous cat fight over him because he's such a hottie, you know.
I mean, like I said, it reminds me of American Psycho. Like he's just
Yeah,
this like really, you know, what seems to be like a down to earth doctor, you know, and what woman at that time period, or even maybe even now, wouldn't want to like be going out with a doctor, you know, like that's what a lot of people, you know, liked back then. So he was this doctor who was pretty good looking, I guess. I mean, I don't know. And I don't. Yeah, the burlesque women fighting whatever the fighting each other over them. I don't really see it
yeah.
necessarily.
He's not that good looking. He's not Conrad Brooks. Come on.
Yeah, Conrad Brooks isn't that good looking either. But all right.
I wish he'd been in this. This felt like a Conrad Brooks kind of movie.
Well, I'm surprised he wasn't because, like,
Yeah.
well, I guess it would have been in New York, right? You said this was shot in New York,
Tarrytown, New
so
York. Yeah.
they would have probably they, you know, they wouldn't have brought him out for New York. He was a California, like Los Angeles local, so they probably wouldn't have had him. But yeah, this does feel like late Ed Wood, like Sinister Urge, which we did
Mhm.
before. This felt like that, where it was sort of approaching that time period where things got a little bit more risque as a but they're still like scared to go the further thing like if
Kind of, yeah. Remember, like the original. Most people know the original Beast of Yucca Flats without the one scene where there's nudity. But there is, and that was actually in the original movie, and it was also around that same period where they were starting to push the boundaries a little bit. But you wouldn't know that because most of the prints that are out in public domain or are out there don't have that scene in there.
probably for I don't know, maybe just the safety of like it being a 50s B movie or 60s B movie, like they want to make sure that people see that and they they're not tarnished by the feeling of it,
Tarnished.
you know,
I'm
like you're
so
not
tarnished.
yeah. I guess. You know what I mean? Like they're not looking at that going, okay, it's a 50s movie and now my eyes have seen nudity, which
Right. Oh
was
my God.
because remember, even the 40s and 50s, they had codes, and one of the code was like women and men weren't, even though they were married, weren't allowed to sleep in the same bed in
Mhm.
the movie. So they had to have two separate beds. So if you watch old movies, you would see
Mhm.
that and you'd be like, why are they sleeping in
And
two separate beds?
women were
Mm.
not allowed to show their belly button. Which is
Yeah.
why Marianne always had her shorts pulled up to hide it.
Oh, for Gilligan's Island?
Yeah,
Oh. Well, I didn't know. When was that? I thought that was 60s.
that was yeah, that's mid '60s.
Okay. I didn't know. I didn't know they were
So
still doing that.
so Brandy,
Uh-huh.
since you are an actress, what did you think of the performances?
Uh, well, I mean, for back then, I thought it was pretty decent. I mean, I don't really watch a lot of old films like this, so this is something new for me. I mean, it's been a forever since I've seen anything like this, since I was like, really young. But
Hmm.
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, I really did enjoy it. I mean, the ending was a little disappointing, but because I was just waiting for something like really like big to happen, and it just kind of fizzled out, and I was kind of like, oh, kind of a little disappointing, but
So it doesn't bother you guys like when the accident happens and he like grabs the head and he runs around with it like a football and like struggles to get up the stairs and it's taking him forever.
yeah, yeah, that was a little odd. The whole ending of the movie though, that I thought was like really disappointing. Like, I was kind of
Mm.
like, it. I mean, that's all. That's it. I was
Well,
Well,
like,
I mean, we've
if it
seen
had been
enough of
rats,
these
would it have been
movies.
more fun?
yeah, something. I mean, maybe I don't know. I mean, I thought maybe he was gonna at least grab Jan's head too and take it with him, because they were like friends.
I
Like,
know, but would she would have died, right? Though, like she wouldn't have
well,
been able to survive. Like, because I think I think the pan somehow or whatever was the thing that was helping keeping her alive.
Yeah, it was
You
the
know?
quote unquote serum.
Yeah.
serum.
Oh, okay. So it's a serum. So she's got some serum in her that
Hmm.
apparently can keep her alive or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's bullshit because, if that was a real thing, how many doctors would be just trying to keep any patient alive,
Right.
or whatever with the magic serum, you
Yeah,
know?
this is one of those movies I kind of wish we had Lenore
That's what I was thinking when I
to
was
sort
watching
of
it.
science explain how none of this could possibly happen.
So Brandy, Lenore is Paul's former roommate, and she was a NASA intern, very young NASA intern, and she's very fucking smart. And she would go on her shows and NASA explain, science, be the voice of science and explain everything
Uh-huh.
scientifically
How
that
they got
could not
stuff
happen.
wrong.
Yeah, how
That mystery.
couldn't happen.
Remember that show, Mystery Science, whatever?
Oh yeah, Mystery Science Theater.
I like that.
It's sort of
That's
like that, but like more along the lines of like actually like Mr. Wizard kind of thing,
yeah,
where she'd
yeah.
be like, this doesn't make any sense. My favorite one was when we did the giant was the giant claw, is that what
Oh,
it's called?
Giant Claw.
The
Yeah.
giant claw, and it's just this bird that's going and like none of the science made any sense. And that was the
Yeah.
first one Paul introduced both of us together, on and
And I
everything.
knew she was gonna go off on that, so that's
Yeah.
why I chose it.
And this she would have definitely gone off on, especially if, like having a head be still alive and everything. She would have just
Right.
thought this is.
Just from a medical ethics point of view, to begin with. I mean, you don't do any of that stuff ever.
Mm,
It's ridiculous.
nope.
Well, I need those parts. It doesn't matter, dude.
Yep. It was
Ridiculous.
utterly ridiculous. But, you know, uh, I guess they had to have something to, like, make the story, quote unquote, story work.
Well, this must have been Joseph Green's thing because this is the only thing he wrote. This was his baby.
This
So,
was this was the only thing burning in his head.
yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
All right.
So, and then after that, he stuck to just kind of, distributing films, and his buddy was helping to produce films, and they got this out of their system, and it was not well received at the time.
Were they actually doing like transplants back then? Like organ transplanting?
Yeah, there were transplants, but as Jan in the pan herself points out, the rejection rate at that period was still pretty high.
Yeah.
So most of the time they weren't really working out. And we're talking about simple stuff. We weren't talking about, heads and brains. I mean, we still can't really do that.
Mm,
I mean, we're up to the point now where you can get a new face if you really wanted it. And there's all kinds of interesting reconstructive surgery that would get done. So Doris would have had no problem getting her
Right.
face done today.
That reminds me of an Ed Wood movie, Jailbait, which I'm sure
Yes.
we'll cover at some point. We've covered almost all of them anyway, so we might as well do Jailbait at some point. But
Yeah,
that movie has like the idea of facial surgery that can make you look completely brand new, like a whole new person or
yeah.
whatever.
It was a
Like,
thing in the late 50s, early 60s. In fact, there were actually some good movies. There's a movie called Eyes Without a Face that I
yes.
would have put on Forgotten Horror Classics, but it's not really forgotten. I think most people know about it.
Well, then we could do it for Criterion because I think it's a Criterion film.
Or either that or Film Freaks, because it's a
Yeah.
really good movie.
Yeah.
But it sort of covers that from like, the point of view of a writer who actually knows what he's doing and researches it.
Yeah. That's generally the thing because like nowadays nobody has the nobody has the thing about like, oh, I couldn't research that because you can just fucking Google anything or at least and you can or YouTube it and you can find all this information and you can sort of, make something actually make sense and be truthful, you know? But back then, they didn't have any of this stuff that we sort of take, I feel like we take for granted a little bit because we do have those, that ability, you know?
And then, there's some sloppiness in the movie too. It's kind of like, when has the car crashed and then he's like, oh yeah, I got to find her new body. Her body burned up in the car. And I don't think the police can track us back. And it's like, there are licenses, there are VIN numbers on plates on the car. They should be able to find you pretty quickly. You just kind of ignored it.
Yeah.
And then he's got a brand new convertible that he's driving around stalking women with.
Yeah.
Well, in all honesty, and this is my opinion on the police stuff is that yes, they could track him down or whatever, but he could just say his car was stolen, and everything, and he didn't know what happened to it because there were no witnesses that
A
saw the accident.
scene, 30-second scene with that would have been useful.
Yeah, just something like that. But see, that's the thing. Back then, they didn't think about that kind of stuff. They just said, nobody will care
I mean,
because
it would even up the tension because say the cop comes to the house and he's there talking with Kurt, and in the meantime there's the thing in the closet banging on there and he's got to like kind of explain what's going on.
my favorite bit would be I actually now I'm writing a sequel-ish kind of thing idea, but like the cop comes to the door, says, "Excuse me, blah 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 blah. Was this your car?" And everything goes, "Oh, the car was stolen." It's like, "Oh, so where's we couldn't find the head of your and then the head's like, "I'm over here." You can hear her. He's like, "What was that?" It's like, "Oh, that's just my friend."
Shut up, Hetty.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could definitely have a lot of fun with that.
I'm just afraid because I saw some of the remake. Like I looked at it, like I went on Tubi and I just kind of perused it. It looks like the same movie except just done with different actors,
Mhm.
pretty much, and set to like black and white and all this
Yeah,
other shit.
I,
And
I do that. Why go to the trouble to just do the same movie? If you're gonna
right,
do it like John Johnson when he did the Plan 9 remake, it's
yeah,
completely different, you know?
everybody should go watch Plan 9 because I'm in
Yes.
it,
Yes.
So, and also John Johnson was awesome and made a
And
movie.
Conrad
I don't know. Have you, Brandy, have you heard of that movie?
No, I haven't.
Plan 9? Yeah. So, he's a filmmaker from Charlottesville, Virginia, and John Johnson makes like a bunch of movies out there.
hundreds.
And yeah, and he got the chance to direct the remake to reboot to was it Plan 9 from Outer Space, which is an Ed Wood movie, which was
The Ed Wood movie.
yeah, and he had always said, like somebody said, if you could remake any movie, he said, I would want to remake a bad movie. I would want to remake, Plan 9 from Outer Space and make it better. And
Sort
he
of the
did,
way Ed Wood wanted to have made it if he had money and
if he had money.
talent.
Yeah, and it's a fun fucking movie. I enjoyed.
Good.
He asked me to be a freaking zombie in it, and I was like, sure. So there you go. Great stuff. But I'm
I don't
sure
think it's on Tubi, is it?
It used to be. I don't know if it
Used
still
to
is.
be.
I
I
don't know
don't
if it
think I've
still is
seen
or
it there.
not.
But if you get the chance, definitely check it out. It's definitely worth it.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
a lot of like, actors around this area, acted in it and stuff. And I know you're friends with Matt Burns, right? And I think like a lot of his crew and stuff know John Johnson and their crew. So, you know,
Brandy, are you in Virginia?
I'm in PA,
Oh, okay. We're in PA.
Waynesboro.
Oh, okay. Waynesboro. Gotcha.
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah, I think yeah, that's whereabouts of Matt Burns, right? That area.
Yeah, he lives right around the corner from me.
For real?
Nice,
That's
nice.
awesome.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's awesome. Is that how you got into this business?
Yeah, pretty much. Yep. Actually, I own a custom cake business, and
Really?
yeah, I make like these crazy cakes, like sharks jumping out of cakes, zombie heads, like all kinds of
You
crazy
can make a
stuff.
cow cake?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Oh,
What's your company's called?
I'm gonna hit you up.
It's called Aunt Bees. You can locate it off of my Facebook page.
Okay.
Um, if you went to my regular page and just went under my reels, you'll see like all my stuff there. But yeah, I had made a zombie head cake for a friend for his birthday, and it just kind of started circulating here around Waynesboro, and just some local people had seen it, and then next thing I know, people kind of like messaging me about it, asking if I could make them stuff, and it just slowly just started coming. I started slowly meeting people in the business, and then I was asked to be a zombie like you in a movie. And
Nice.
so I was originally going to be a zombie, and then it turned out that they were like, "Hey, let's cast you as a vampire." And I was like, "All right." So that's how it started. I that was my first movie. I was a vampire in 02.
Nice.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, so and then this last year, I was just looking it up earlier. I was like, wow, I've been in, I think it was 11 films this last year.
Good for
Yeah,
you.
that's
Hmm.
awesome. Keep
I'm gonna have
going.
to hit you up for a cow cake. I want a cake in the shape of a cow, and I want working udders where whipped cream comes out of the udders. That would be
Oh,
awesome.
can
I
that be possible?
I can make it happen. I've piece of the cake. My reels out under my regular Facebook page. I've made some crazy cakes, like marijuana cakes. It looks so real. I was afraid I was going to catch a charge because it looks so real.
Nice.
Shark heads, like I said, zombie heads, horse head,
Nice.
crazy stuff. But yeah, I can get you. I can get you. I love
See,
cows.
but if we
White
get
cow
a
or high.
premiere for one of our things, we got to have a special cake made.
Oh, for sure. We'll do it.
Absolutely. And Brandy's gonna be our girl to make that stuff for us. So we'll do that. I would love that because I love cake, but
Oh
like
yeah.
I who doesn't love cake?
Or
I mean,
cupcakes. Do you do cupcakes as well?
Oh yeah, I do custom cookies, cupcakes,
Oh, nom, nom,
all
nom.
you have just hit like Paul in the sweet spot right
Nom,
there.
nom, nom, nom,
Like,
nom, nom, nom.
that. My day job, I'm a medical transport driver, and then I have my custom cake business, and then I just graduated EMT school, like last week.
Oh,
Uh,
outstanding. Good for you.
so I'm going for my national registry here pretty soon. So I'll be nationally registered to practice. So,
and you're
yeah,
playing an EMT, right? In a movie.
I'm gonna play a paramedic in one of the movies I'm doing. Yeah.
Nice.
So it's life imitating art,
That's what
imitating life.
yeah.
There you
That's
go.
cool.
That's
Yes,
awesome.
definitely stay busy.
Well, we've hit that time now where we have to start scoring our film. And for the benefit of our audience out here, we use a 1 to 10 score for our stinkometer, by which the lower the number, the better the film is. And the higher the number, the stinkier the film is. And if you think the movie's kind of meh, you might give it like a 5. And if you're feeling kind of subtle about your score and you can't decide between, say, a 4 and a 5, you might want to give it a 4.5. That's perfectly cool too. And then we take the 3 scores of our reviewers and we add it up, and then we see where on the ladder of stink this movie happens to go. And if it's a really bad movie and we all give it 10s, then it goes straight up to stinky heaven. Along with the folks like Neil Breen and David the Rock Nelson and legendary auteurs like that. So, who would like to score the movie first, Mr. Moody? You want to kind of do that as an example?
Okay, yeah, sure. Because this is Brandy's first time, so I don't want to make her like choose something off the bat, like that. So I'll go. I'm gonna give it a 7. I think it's pretty stinky. Like it's got points where it's, like in the beginning of the film, I thought it was gonna be pretty good because the beginning it seemed like people got their shit together and like everything was like the acting wasn't that bad and all this other stuff. And I'm like, oh shit, this seems like it might be like a 5, like it didn't seem like it was going to be something that blew me out of the way. The more you watched it, the sneaker sort of got, and I was like, okay, this is pretty bad. Like the flying out of the thing, but not getting hurt at all, and not having blood or dirt or anything on you, just completely clean. And then with the head and coming back and all this other stuff, and
Or
and that
like the
one
whole
girl's
contrivance of the accident to begin with, because they're just driving and driving, and he's like, "Oh, I have to be someplace," and then all of it, you're seeing him like flooring it, and they're like, "Arr!" And never at one point does fiance say, "Hey, you need to stop driving like a maniac,"
Yeah.
and I think I might put my seatbelt on, or
yeah.
something. Common sense.
So I'll stay with the 7, you know. Um,
Okay.
so do you want to go, Paul?
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a little worse than that. I'm going to go with an 8 for all of the things that I mentioned before. However, I will say again, on a production level, this is better than a lot of the movies we've seen.
Reaping
We
Terror was way
we can
worse than this.
see everything, we can hear everything. There was no stupid backgrounds. Everything kind of worked. Even the lab set looked legit enough that
Hmm.
I was okay with it. And some of the performances I thought were okay. I didn't really think acting was the problem in this film. It was the ridiculous story, in my opinion, and the sleazy characters that were the problem. But um, the other stuff, the you could tell that the folks who put this together, who did the sort of nuts and bolts of the production, knew what they were doing. Like the music was actually really, really good. All the lighting was really good. All that stuff was good. So there was enough of that I can't really give it anything worse than an 8.
Hmm.
But there's just so many ridiculous things and so much sleaze that yeah, an 8's good for me.
What
I'm
about
gonna
you,
mirror.
Brady?
I'm gonna mirror you, and I was gonna say an 8.
Ah,
Yeah.
very cool.
Wow,
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
am I the one who gives it the lower score? Like, no, it's okay. I'm
It-
like, okay, I get
yeah.
it.
Disappointing. I just wanted something a little more from the ending, but yeah, it just kind of just abruptly stopped too. I was like, oh,
Mm.
I was a little disappointed it ended like that, but yeah, I think an 8's pretty fair.
Yeah, it's kind of like, when the monster carries off the model and she just goes, "I told you should have just let me die," and it's kind of like nanny nanny poo poo.
Hmm.
That's it.
That's it.
That's
Yeah.
it.
what
That's
what
the
about the
ending.
doctor? Did he just dead? Does he not bother to like try to get away?
I guess
There seems like
get
there
that
should
big
have been
chunk out,
more.
remember?
Yeah, but he's a doctor. You figure he can probably do
Direct pressure.
something about that.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
Well,
bringing heads back to life. He should be able to bring his own ass back to life.
Put a little serum on there and there
Right.
you go.
But he doesn't even try. So it's kind of like, yeah.
oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. It just seems weird that this is the story that burned in Joseph Green's brain that he had to have made. Just I don't know. I don't know why that happened. The only thing I can think of is the whole Jane Mansfield thing, and that he decided that that would have been an interesting horror movie utilizing something like that. What if somebody had resurrected the head and was like walking around with the head, and then people were hiring the head to act in movies, and then the head has a bigger career than when she had a body. I think that'd been fun.
You're
Yeah.
giving this movie like way too much credit. Like it did
you
not.
you could have a lot of fun with this movie if
Yeah.
you decided to
You
make
could
it
take a
more of a
bullet.
comedy. And that's the other thing. They really took this movie very, very seriously. And that's kind of problematic too, because it's so ridiculous.
Hmm.
You can't take it seriously, but the movie does too
No,
much.
absolutely. All right, so it's a 23, which on the ladder of stink, that puts it, hold on. That puts it, oh, geez, we have a lot of 24s, by the way.
Oh, I know.
A shit ton of them. Oh, it's up there with Roller Gator.
Yay.
It's up there with Suburban Sasquatch,
Nice.
Deadly Prey, and Samurai Cop.
Okay.
So yeah,
Brandy, if you have not seen Roller Gator, please, for the love of
I
God,
was
do yourself a favor and look that movie up. I'm pretty sure
okay.
it's on Tubi.
if not, it's on YouTube because the producer put it up on YouTube as well.
Yes, yes. Do yourself, you have to watch it. It's
All right,
It's
glorious.
cute. It's cute.
all right,
Uh,
cool.
Glorious film.
I think I gave it a harsh score back then, but nowadays I probably give it a lower, like a lower stink score because it's actually a lot better than a lot of the shit
It's
Paul makes
a
me watch
lot of
now.
fun. It really is. It's adorable. It's
That
super cute.
that was back when we first started the stinkometer, and I didn't know, I didn't have anything to gauge, the stuff. Now looking back, I think we want to do like a podcast or like a
Yes,
video of
special
something,
show where
a
we
special show where we like
rescore a couple movies.
Or-
rescore a couple of them that we because I would definitely give Active Maximus a 10 and make that a fucking 30,
Yeah.
because that was not, I was a lot, I don't know. I that was terrible. That was the worst movie, probably one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Hip Hop Locos got,
Oh,
that got a 30.
that was bad.
So
That should have got a. Did that get a 30 plus?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
deserved it.
If you really want to see a terrible movie, find that one.
Yeah, and no, but you won't unless you need it, unless you're with friends and you can just chat with them the whole time while the movie's going on. That's what I would suggest because otherwise you're going to turn it off in the first like 10
It's
minutes just watching it
lots
by yourself.
and lots of pain and anguish.
That's pretty bad. It's just a bunch of dudes filming themselves acting like they're gangsters, and shit. Gangster
For
rappers,
an hour and a half.
uh,
And it's incredibly dark. It's like they filmed it out of a coffee can, so you can't see anything. So you have no
oh,
idea what's going on.
No,
yeah.
no, pretty much. And then
Ridiculous.
a lot of it's like almost found footage. So it's like the guy with the camera, like holding up the camera, talking, and then passing it to his friend, and shit like that. It's so bad. It was hard to like. You tortured poor Jin with that again.
I
Like,
know.
stop being so mean to her. You know.
Oh, I've got another one planned for her that's really
I know it's
good.
gonna be at the end of the year, so get ready for that, people. And
I always save up something particularly vile for the end.
But by the way, this will come out at the end of August, so this will
Okay.
be a while before this is released. We generally shoot everything or record everything way ahead of time so that we can get everything done by July,
Yeah.
and
So,
everything.
Brandy, usually we ask our guests, especially if they're in the biz, what they have going on that we should know about or we should be able to tell other folks to look out for.
Ooh, okay. Let's see. I'm going to be playing in a movie called Helvira,
Ooh,
and
Nice.
that
Are
sounds
you
like
going down
fun.
to Texas for that?
I'm actually doing a voiceover, so
Oh,
mine's remote, so I'm lucky. But my character is called Stabitha,
Ah,
and I recently modeled for this magazine, Horror Freaks. So we'll be
nice.
how to get this pretty soon. So I'm excited about this. I'm getting ready to start another film where I play an agent in Matt Anderson's film. It's called These Things.
okay.
You, and oh my gosh, so I'm doing that. I got all kinds of little things coming up. So you'll just have to follow along and see what
Yay.
I'm
Well,
gonna
if
be.
you've got any links for us, make sure you send them to Mr. Moody and we will put them up on the website so that folks can
Absolutely.
follow you up.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. And is this something like, did you have fun? Would you want to
Oh,
come
yeah.
back?
Oh, absolutely. I enjoyed this so much. So fun.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were great. Like you were wonderful for your first time here and everything. And this is, I think, one of your first interactions on Zoom, if I'm correct. Like or something. You said something about Zoom, so I wasn't sure if you actually already had it all set up.
Yep. Yeah, it's actually, yeah, I actually had Zoom already hooked up here, just for like other, to talk to other people, but this is my first like videoed.
Okay, like podcast kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. Just an audio situation. I'm getting ready to do, I have a couple podcasts coming up, that I'm gonna be doing, here pretty soon, but they're just audio.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. So
So
you'll come back on the show?
absolutely. I'd love to. Thank you.
Yay.
Yes.
Well, it'll be Mr. Moody's turn next.
Yeah, that's generally what we do. Is if I get him, we like to switch it up. If for the second time, it would be the other person
Yeah.
picking a
And
movie.
usually the way it works is when Moody brings on somebody that I don't know anyone about, usually it's one of his movies first because I don't know these folks. So I kind of went with this one because I didn't know much about you and I didn't know what your likes or dislikes were or if there was stuff you didn't want to see. So I was like,
Right.
well, I better go with an older stinker, you know,
It's a
till I
little
got
more
an idea.
G-rated. Even though
Yeah,
this
till
is
I
a
got more
little
of an
not
idea of
G-rated,
this
but
of your, do's and don'ts.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm like really open to just pretty much anything. Yeah, I'm just always curious to see what you got. So don't be afraid to throw it out there.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. I'll have to see what we'll have next. I can't wait. The thing is when it's remote like this, it's harder to you have to find things that are on YouTube or
Yeah.
Tubi or
Yeah.
Plex. I don't like doing Plex if I don't have to because Plex I'm just watching Plex right now and apparently they have commercials every like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Like and they're like 8 minute eight commercials,
Oh,
and I'm like,
That
oh
sucks.
my God, that's like can we dial it down a little bit, Plex? Like, so like be like Tubi. Tubi only has like six and then they'll have like four and then like two, like it differs, but like
mm.
that's annoying. But
But if you ever find yourself in the southeastern Virginia area, please come look us up. We'll take you down to the studio and we'll chat with you and show you some stinky movies and
we'll
share some
feed you.
pizza. Yeah,
We'll feed you. So
definitely.
there you go. So you'll get food and you'll get a show,
Awesome.
whatever movie, and we'll do a podcast.
Yeah, it'd
All
So
be
right.
fun.
yes.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I guess that's about it. That about wraps it up for this episode. So thank you, Brandy. This has been awesome, and we really
Thanks.
appreciate you being on the show.
We appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Had a great time.
Yeah. Do
Yay.
you have a website, like your own official website or anything yet?
I don't. I don't. No.
So
No.
what's your social media so people can find you?
Brandi Lynn Dalton. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. It's just my name, Brandi Lynn Dalton. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So just
Or-
check her out and check out her food, her
Yeah, we need
custom
some
cakes.
pictures of some of your cakes.
Yeah, Aunt Bees. Yeah, you can go under my regular Facebook page. You'll see. Just go to my reels. You can see all kinds of neat things that I've made there.
Yay. That sounds
Awesome.
great.
Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna make you a cow cake.
Oh God, that would be so awesome.
Yeah,
Woohoo!
you guys gotta link up now because now
Oh,
you
sure
know.
we will.
Yay.
All
Yeah,
right, all right,
awesome.
everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed this show. Join us. I think next month. For a brand new episode. Until then, everybody. Bye.
Bye.